recommended that it has to be an opening prayer. So, Dr. Ando, would you mind doing me the honors of an opening prayer?
Thank you. May I humbly ask us all to rise? So we say this prayer in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together. Above all, Lord, we pray that you enlighten those who have the knowledge to give us today, that we will understand what you are saying and be inspired to take the right steps for our dear children. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Dr. Ando. So this program has been put together by the Autism Parents Group of All Prayer and Ministries in Hanford, Connecticut. We are so grateful to them. I'm not going to waste too much time. We're going to set the ball rolling immediately. And I'm going to invite the facilitator of this seminar right now. Miss Yasika is here. I'm not going to say anything about her. I'll let her do her own talking. So, yes, please.
Hey, I'm a DJ.
Fire, babe.
Let's go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, fellow parents, fellow healthcare workers. Thank you for joining me today to share a deeply personal journey that has profoundly shaped my perspective on life, hope, and the power of determination. It's a story of a mother's unwavering love, a child's resilience, and a newfound path that has led us to the most unexpected and remarkable solution. When my precious son was diagnosed with autism, my world was scattered. The news hit me like a tidal wave, and I found myself drowning in a sea of emotion. I felt confusion, fear, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. Every parent dreams of a bright and untroubled future for their child, and the diagnosis seems to cast a shadow over those dreams. During those challenging times, I turned to the one source of comfort that had always been a constant in my life, my faith in God. I prayed fervently, seeking guidance, strength, and most importantly, a solution. I believed that somewhere out there was an answer to my son's disorder and a way to elevate his struggles and help him lead a fulfilling life. One day, as I was researching tirelessly, I stumbled upon a ray of hope, autologous bone marrow cell treatment in India. It was a journey into the unknown, but my heart told me that this could be the breakthrough we had been searching for. Our arrival in India was like stepping into a new world, a world filled with endless possibility. We didn't know what lay ahead, but what we did know was that we were taking a step towards something greater. The treatment was not just a medical procedure, it was a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in our darkness hour. As the day turned into weeks, I witnessed the incredible transformation that was unfolding before my eyes. My son's progress was nothing short of miracle. Bone marrow cell treatment was unlocking door that has since bottled shut. His communication skill improved. His social interaction blossomed, and his world became little less confusion for him. It was as if the treatment was breathing new life into his spirit. Today, as I stand before you, I am overwhelmed with gratitude. That journey to India, that lapse of faith, led us to 90% recovery for my son. The change has been astonishing. A treatment to the resilience of human spirit and the power of medical advancements. Every small achievement, every milestone crossed is a victory we cherished. But this journey is not just about my son. It's a treatment to the incredible strength that parents, caregivers, and individuals with autism displays every single day. It's a treatment to the miracle that can happen with science and faith. It's a treatment to the miracle that can happen when science and faith intertwine. It's a treatment to the boundless love that propels us to seek solution, no matter how daunting the challenges may seem. Let us remember that the journey is ongoing. There is much more to explore, much more to learn, and much more to achieve. Let us continue to support research, to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves, and to never lose sight of the potential that resides within every individual. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you today. May it serve as a reminder that even in the darkness of hour, hope is never truly lost. Together, we can create a world for every individual. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. You heard her story. And like I said in the beginning, for those of you that were not here, autism has nothing to do with witches and wizards. Please. And once, no, I can't say that because the doctors are here. The doctors will tell you everything. So on that note, let me introduce the doctors to you straight away. Dr. Nandini. All the way from Mumbai. And then Dr. Pooja. So, with these two, here is the beautiful thing. They are going to talk about three things: autism, stem cell, and mental health. Because yes, the mothers go through a lot. As for the men, I can't talk for them because the men, they hide it. They don't cry. And I wish I could put one particular father on the spot. But then I won't do that for now. But I'm going to turn it over to the doctors, and they are going to tell us how this is resolved.
Let's go!
Thank you so much. Good evening. So, I am Dr. Nandini, and as Mr. Palsy introduced me, I have come on the way from Mumbai for all of you.
Let's go!
I landed at JFK at 1 p.m. today, and I'm here. I'm glad to see so many of you coming here, interested to know what can be done for our children. I'm sure as parents, you are doing a lot of things, but what more can be done? What is there which is maybe 24 hours away from the US, for which you have to make a leap of faith? It's good to know before you go, yes? Joyce just spoke about her experience. She is one of the few who, without even seeing us in person, decided that this is what she wanted to do for her son. She took a leap of faith, and she's here to tell the story today. So I'm going to try and make it, it is technical, but try and make it as simple as possible for you. So what I'm going to talk today about is the recent medical advances. What is new in the treatment of children with neurodevelopmental disorders? Ministries in Hartford, Connecticut, for this invitation. So this talk is only for information. It is not a medical consultation. It is not a substitute for your doctors. And I'm going to tell about experience worldwide as well as our experience based on scientific information, scientifically evaluated information, and this is a free seminar. And as I said, acknowledge for the invitation and for calling you all, getting you here, and thank you for waiting for almost an hour for the seminar to start. So what is new? What is it that I'm going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity? We are like billions and billions of human beings on this earth, and each one of us is different. Some are tall, some are short, some are fat, some are thin, some are black, some are white, some are whitish, some have long hair, some are short, but we are all diverse. Similarly, there are children who are brilliant, some are average, some are different. So this is the neurodiversity we need to embrace. That's what I'm going to talk about. That this is, as Palsy said, it is not witchcraft. It is a brain which is developing differently. And we need to understand it to accept it. Better understanding of what's happening in the brain of a child with autism. The child looks absolutely fine. In fact, most of the boys, they are handsome. They grow like, beautiful, handsome boys. Outwardly, you won't really find anything. So what is wrong? Most of the parents want to know what's wrong in the brain of my child, that the child is different. That's what I'm going to try and make it understandable for you today. Neuroregeneration. What is neuroregeneration? The concept of that the brain, once it is damaged, can regenerate. It is a new concept for many people. It's actually not such a new concept, but just the fact that just as the skin can heal, the brain can also heal is something which we have not heard for a long time. And that's what I'm going to show to you today. And a multidisciplinary management. What does that mean? So I've been giving a lot of awareness talks in different parts of the world. And one place is a very, I think as a Ghanaian community, you would also relate to this. There is a proverb in Africa which says that to raise a child, you need a village, isn't it? Yeah, that sounds familiar. So similarly, to treat a child with autism, you need a whole lot of people coming together. That's what is the multidisciplinary approach. And what is the role of cellular therapy or regenerative medicine and integrative therapy? These are the new advances. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So, sounds relate with that diagnosis. So it's important for us to understand what is it that's happening. And this is the scan which tells us what is happening. You must have been told nobody really does scans all over the world. For a child with autism, it's a clinical diagnosis. But what is wrong in the brain? So this is something which we have studied in great depth. And we have published it in a medical journal. So this is the brain. To familiarize you with how you look at this brain. And when you look from the side, this is how you will see. right? So can you understand this? This is the front of the brain, top of the brain, back of the brain, and back and below, right? So this is how you are looking at it. So the green, the yellow, the red part is all good functioning brain, but the blue part that you see is functioning less. Okay, so that means a big part of the brain is good, but some parts here are working less. This is what we have been able to understand. I will talk a little bit more about it later. So what are we going to understand today? That we need to heal this brain. We need to regenerate this part of the brain which is working or damaged. The old thinking was that once the brain is damaged, it cannot be repaired. That is the old thinking. There are so many old myths in our life that have been totally made obsolete, right? In India, we used to have this understanding that in the evening you do not cut your hair or you cut your nails and you put a lamp in the night. Why? Because there was no electricity at that time. But with the electricity, we do everything the whole day, whole night, right? So, but still, some of those things are sort of, ingrained in us. Similarly, that the brain cannot regenerate, even if we show 100 times, even to the doctors, still it is very difficult for them to conceptualize that the brain can regenerate. Okay? You've been told skin can regenerate, liver can regenerate, to some extent heart can regenerate, bone can regenerate, but brain you cannot think about. However, that is a old concept. Okay? What is the new thinking? That regeneration is possible. It may not be complete regeneration, but some regeneration is possible through the process of cellular repair. We need to give some raw material. So through the process of cellular repair and replacement, and it is possible to regenerate the brain. So what is required for treatment of whether any neurodevelopmental disorder? It can be autism, it can be cerebral palsy, it can be intellectual disability. What is required is a cohesive multidisciplinary approach which requires different therapies. You must have heard, and you must be doing this for your children, right? Occupational therapy, have you heard? Yeah, behavioral therapy, speech therapy, sometimes physiotherapy, animal-based therapy, right? How horses are known to be very good animals. When children relate to them, the horses feel or sense the child's mood. There are dogs, therapeutic dogs, which help children with autism relate to them and become very good friends. There is, of course, diet and nutrition also. A certain type of diet may increase the hyperactivity of the child. So yes, all of these, and along with that, newer treatments. When I introduce this, I talk in terms of teams. I don't know what game is played more popular in Connecticut. What team sport? Like in India, we have a lot of cricket. I think in US also, cricket is coming in, right? The Premier Leagues are coming in. Otherwise, it's what? Soccer. Is it soccer? Football. So football is a team effort, right? It's a team play. Yeah? So how does US football rank in the world? No, right? So what does that mean? That the team that the US football has, it's an old team. It may be an experienced team, but not good enough to win the World Cup, right? So what does that mean? It means that you have to infuse new blood in there. With the experience, you need new technology, you need new blood, you need younger members, you need new kind of enthusiasm. So along with all the rehabilitation, that is occupational therapy, speech therapy, physiotherapy, applied behavior analysis, you need new team members, and that's what I'm going to introduce today in the form of cellular therapy and integrated therapy. So this will not replace the experienced team members. Okay, experienced team members are required. They are the solid foundation of the team. What we are going to do is add in so that now this team together will win the World Cup. For us, it can make our child better and help our child to integrate into the community. Right? So about autism, yes, why do we need to do something about treating autism? Why do we need to start rethinking about how to treat autism? Why? Because the numbers are increasing. And numbers are increasing dramatically, exponentially. And in a way, it's scary. Right? This is CDC Atlanta data. One of the most accurate data in the world. Right? So look at 2004, the prevalence was 1 in 166. In 2010, it was 1 in 110. In 2021, 1 in 44. In 2023, 1 in 36. Maybe in the next 10-15 years, maybe every third child would possibly be diagnosed as autism. So it's time that we start thinking about why and what can be done. So that's why it's important. 70 million people in the world are on the spectrum, 1% of the world's population. In fact, it's unfortunate that in the field of medical science, all other areas have progressed dramatically except the field of neurological sciences. It's really very, very unfortunate, right? I think we have an autism pandemic in our hand, but we are not really giving it that much, consideration and importance. So what exactly is autism? Okay, so it is a neurodevelopmental disorder. A long time back, it was considered to be a psychiatric condition. However, we now know that as the brain develops, before birth, during birth, or immediately after birth, somewhere the brain development, the way it is formed, the way it's working, the way it's connecting is getting affected. It was first described by an Austrian psychiatrist, and it is a spectrum. That's why every child is different. Some children are mild, some are very severe. The mild ones, the higher functioning ones, do become independent, but there is a big cohort which unfortunately is unable to reach that stage of being able to integrate into the symptoms, as we know, which under which lies the whole spectrum. One is poor socialization, impaired communication. I ask the males here, do you know how to cook? You know? Well, no, all the males need. I need to really understand this. Somebody, and that's a child. Do you know how to cook? Do you know how to cook? Everything. Or a few things.
No, we are in restaurant business.
You are in restaurant, so I'm asking the wrong person.
I don't know.
You don't know anything. Something. One thing. Not even tea.
Only tea.
Only tea. So when your wife goes for a holiday, what do?
Restaurant.
Restaurant, right. Or if the restaurants are closed, then?
Plenty of that.
Okay. So suppose you knew one particular thing. What, for example, when we were in hostel when I was in medical school, we didn't know how to cook. We didn't have a lot of things. So what would we do? We had few options, right? We had omelette, or we would make, for us in India, it's Maggi, so fast noodles, right? So those are the only two things we knew, and that's what we would keep on making. So what does that mean? That what I knew was limited, was restricted, and that's why I would keep doing the same thing. I had nothing else. I did not know anything else. Similarly, children with autism, when they know only their interest is very narrowed because they know only that, and they will keep doing that. So this is important for you to understand, to be able to understand your child better and to see how you can explore, how you can make his or her vision broader, make his interest broader, to be able to stop that repetitive behavior. And then, of course, that will also improve the socialization. So this is about the clinical features of autism. What does the brain imaging tell us? Okay, so that's what we are going to look at. See, you are aware of an imaging known as MRI, right? You know what MRI is?
Yeah.
So what does MRI tell us? That this is a chair and it has 4 legs. Okay, so by and large, an MRI in a child with autism will show that the brain structure is broadly normal. So what is wrong? MRI is normal. Normal CT scan is normal. But we don't know, if I sit on that chair, will it take my weight? How strong are those legs? That's what we started thinking, that we need to understand how is the functioning of the brain. How those areas, they look all right, but are they working all right? That's where we started looking at the PET scan. The PET scan tells us it is a evolved or advanced imaging which is generally used for cancer, to see how much the cancer has spread. We modified it to look at the functioning of the brain. So this tells us how much the brain is functioning, different parts of the brain are functioning, and the colors are just there to make it easier for us to comprehend and understand. So just broadly, if you see the brain here, the green part indicates good functioning brain and the blue part indicates low functioning brain. It doesn't mean that the structure is affected, it means that the functioning is affected. So there are different parts of the brain we found that in autism is working less. You can see all this green, yellow, red part is good. But here you can see where I'm pointing out, this is the area for understanding, learning, comprehension, emotional expression, socialization. Does that ring a bell? Here in the center is the thalamus, which connects the right brain to the left brain and both the brains down below. So that means it is a relay center. It is important for processing of information. The third part here you can see is the small brain at the back. This is the brain. This is like a traffic police of the brain. What does a traffic police do? Yes. So what does it? So you have the roads, you have a crossroad, and if there is no traffic police there, or the lights, your traffic lights are not working, what will happen? On the way when I was coming from New York, we saw there was a accident, right? So what happens? That because people don't know where to go, either there is a chaos, like in Bombay, it won't be accident, it would be like a block there, road block, because everybody will be trying to go wherever they want to go, because it is not properly directed. So the road is there, the cars are there, but proper signaling is not there, and that's what the cerebellum does. So if cerebellum is not functioning, there will be chaos in the brain. The brain will not be able to understand where should I send this signal. So the brain is like a computer, or I would say computer is like a brain, right? I think computer was made from how the brain works. So this here is the input, this here is the processing, and this here is the area for output. So input is all fine, processing and output is the problem. So information all comes in, but what to do with this information? How to process it? How to respond to it? That is the main issue in children with autism. So these areas need to get corrected. So we now know, we now understand the children better. We can't just say, oh, I am teaching him everything, I am doing all the therapies. The child just doesn't understand. How do I help? That's what that is what happening with your children. You're trying everything, you are training and training and training, but the brain doesn't have the capacity to process it. Suppose you have a broken leg. Has anybody had a fracture? Anybody? Nobody? So you had a fracture of your hand, leg, what? Hip. So when you had a hip fracture, what did you do? Did you start walking and training it immediately? No. What did you do? You first fixed it. Yeah, either you put a plaster if it's possible, or you do a surgery. Why? Because the bone needs to heal. And once the bone heals, then you do the physiotherapy to strengthen the muscles, right? If you start walking on a fractured bone, what will happen? The fracture will worsen. It will increase. That's what we are doing with our children. We are training on a fractured brain. How is the child going to like it? He wants to do it, but he's incapable of doing it. So that's where we need to work on healing the brain. That's the message that we would like to give today. So this is the World Journal of Nuclear Medicine. Our study where we looked at the brain functioning was published here, and we saw something very interesting here. We found that this is how the brain of a child with autism, it looks like. This is normally the graph would go up, right? When a child grows, the brain functioning will go up. Here you are seeing that it is more initially and then it is going down. So the functioning, though we understand that autism is a static condition, it doesn't worsen, but we do see that the brain functioning seems to be worsening with time. That means that as the age increases, instead of the brain becoming better, it actually worsens in most of the cases. There are parents who have told us that we have really worked with the child seems to be improving, but during the prepubertal or pubertal phase, there is another autism and the child worsens further between the age of 12 to 15 because the brain functioning is going down. So what does that mean? That we need to intervene early before this goes down too much. That means we need to intervene early so that we can push this graph up. Because the more we delay, the more the difference between a neurotypical brain and a brain of a child with autism. So where does neurorehabilitation come into this? It is the most experienced team member in the management of autism, right? So what is neurorehabilitation? ABA, understanding the behavior of a child. Okay, why the child is doing something he or she is doing, try and correct the antecedent. So that is important. Occupational therapy, very, very important. What is the occupation of a child? Does he have to go to the office and work? What does he have to do? He needs to eat, he needs to play, he needs to poop, he needs to have a bath, right? So occupational therapy teaches a child how to do activities of daily living, how to play with other children, how to take care of himself, how to basically go to school and study. So occupational therapy is very important. Now you would say, why does this need to be taught? Yes, most children learn these things by themselves, but children with autism need special training because, as I told you, they are unable to process information. Their information processing system is not appropriately wired, and that's why training is required for them to learn the right way. Sensory integration, as I said, what is sensory integration therapy? In the US, a lot of focus is on ABA, but occupational therapy and sensory integration therapy are very, very important because what is sensory integration? Now you are sitting here. If the sound is very loud, you will close your ears, right? If the sound is very low, you will try to find a way to hear, right? That is the appropriate way of responding to sound. But children with autism many times have a fault in the way they respond to different senses, whether it be sound, whether it be light, vision, whether it be touch, whether it be smell. So it is inappropriate. Either it is low or it is high. So we need to again train the brain. So far all the focus is on training. Training is definitely important. But as I said, we need to enhance the effect of the training. We need to give that training raw material. Suppose you are going to the gym. How many people go to the gym? Yes. So if you go to the gym and you do a lot of exercise, but you don't enhance your diet with protein, will it work? What will happen? Your your muscle will break but will not repair again, and you will have more of muscle pain. So along with the therapy, speech therapy again important. Speech therapy doesn't only mean taking out words. It means understanding and to be able to communicate. So the concepts are now changing. All these need to be done integrated. Physical therapy by and large traditionally is not a part of autism treatment. However, at Neurogen in my institute, we believe that physical therapy is a very important part, helps the child to learn. Many children, don't know how to climb and come down the stairs. They don't know how to jump. They don't know how to stand on one leg. They don't know how to do motor planning. The tone of the body is also low. All that is treated or corrected by physical therapy. Aquatic therapy. Most children love water. And when you do training in water, it makes a different impact altogether. The child's sitting, standing, posture, focus, everything improves. Swimming also helps in reducing the child's energy levels and optimizing it. Art-based therapy, right? Teaching different way. We feel that the teaching methods now, unfortunately, I think it's better in the US, but in India it's worse. They have this 50, 70 children in one class, and whatever the teacher says, you have to listen to it. Not very new, relatively new field of regenerative medicine, where we use healthy cells to replace or stimulate the damaged cells. So this is the brain, where you can see the blue areas are working less. The cells will go and stimulate these areas, and the blue becomes less blue and green increases. That means the activity of the brain will increase. Now, there is a lot of work, because people say, oh, it is new, it is still experimental. There is a lot of work in the field of cellular therapy which has happened in a whole lot of different conditions. Okay, in bone conditions, in heart conditions, in diabetes, in liver. We will focus on the brain condition, neurological conditions. In neurological conditions, in autism, there are 33 scientific publications, and in cerebral palsy 44, and all others as well. Even our textbook that we read in medical school has a chapter on stem cell biology and the role of regenerative medicine in neurological conditions. And it is not a science which has come yesterday, right? A lot of research has happened on it. Nobel Prize has been awarded 3 times in the history of mankind to the field of regenerative medicine, right from 1990 to 2012, which is very rare in any field of medicine. There is no field of medicine in which there are Nobel Prizes 3 times. We know what Nobel Prize is, right? Right? It's the Oscar of all Oscars. Yeah. So 1990 demonstration of stem cells in the bone marrow is the first, earliest ever that our bone marrow, our body itself forms lot of cells which have the capability to regenerate. So this is Stephen Hawking. Is the sound working? Yeah. So this is arteries from the chest and put it on the heart. So that is from our own body, that is known as autologous. And if you take from outside, like for example, somebody has sickle cell anemia and has thalassemia. Have you heard of these conditions? Yeah, so then you have to take somebody else's bone marrow, either from sibling or from donor. That is known as allogeneic. So depending on where you take it, the transplantation will vary. Now, where do you get these cells from? Can we go to a shop and buy these cells? Not yet, right? I think but the time will come when that will happen. But at present, these are cells which are from our own body, right? When we were in our mother's womb, we were stem cells. And when we were 2 cells, like 1 cell state, then 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 16, 32, and then we were a bunch of cells. And from here, when the cells are taken, then they are known as embryonic stem cells. So many couples do not have kids, and they go to the fertility expert and test tube babies. You must have heard of test tube babies, right? So test tube babies, what are these? That the embryos are fertilized outside, and a few of them are put in the mother's womb, the rest are wasted. And from there, when the cells are cultured, then the whole different cells of the body, all cells of our body can be formed. However, due to ethical reasons and for certain medical reasons, these cells cannot be used for treatment purposes, because ethically there is concern that you are killing an embryo, you are taking a life, and that in the long term these will multiply indefinitely and form tumors. And hence, with the embryonic stem cell, the concern of tumors is there, and hence cannot be used for treatment. This is good research material but cannot be used for treatment. The other type of cells which you must have heard of, and there is a lot of I think in the US also, US only it started, we called blood banking, right? So when the child is born, the mother and child are connected with a cord, and this cord has a lot of cells which are that child's investment, that child's safety net. So that can be stored for the child's future, and these cells have been looked at in a lot of blood disorders for siblings, and recently in Duke University is being used also for autism and cerebral palsy. But when we don't have both these options, what do we have? As Stephen Hawking said, we have cells which are there in our own body, cells which can regenerate, which are multiplying till we die. And one of the sources is the bone marrow. So the bone marrow, I think most of you are non-vegetarians, when you chew the bone, right, the chicken bone, you know that it's hollow, and inside this hollow is the cells which multiply, the bone marrow, and which forms new blood. So bone marrow is a very good source of special cells or stem cells. There are other sources. Are you aware of other sources of stem cells in our own body? There are cells which females want to discard. They go for very expensive surgeries to get rid of them. What is them? Fat cells, right? Adipose tissue. Fat has a whole lot of stem cells, lots of stem cells. So adipose tissue stem cells is one more source, used a lot for cosmetology. Then our teeth, right? The wisdom teeth also has been known to have stem cell niches. So these are a few sources of adult stem cells. Adult stem cells, we are not taking it from an embryo. We are not killing a life. Okay? These are simple, these are our own, will not get rejected, and they will not multiply lifelong, will not form tumors. And hence, ethically, medically, they become a feasible source for use for regeneration. The fourth type is the induced pluripotent stem cells. Work is going on this. In 2012, Nobel Prize was awarded for getting a concept, or understand the concept that our own cells, our skin cells, at whatever age can be transformed to become like a small baby cells, and that can be used for you later in life. But that is still under a lot of understanding process. But definitely what we have are the adult stem cells right now, right today. Today, it's not a science fiction, it is something can be done today and not futuristic science. So we did a lot of research on which type of cells would be ethically acceptable, will not have any long-term issues, and can be taken out easily without any side effects. And we homed on to the use of bone marrow cells from the patient himself or herself. Why? Because they are safe, they are non-tumorogenic. They will not multiply so much that they form tumors, so absolutely safe. No rejection issue, because these are our own cells. So if I have a problem, bone marrow is taken from my own body. If my brain has a problem, my bone marrow is fine, is healthy, I will take bone marrow from my hip bone. If my bone is fractured, I can use my own bone marrow to heal my bone. No rejection issues, so easily obtainable. It's not a big surgery. Okay, in fat also it's a big procedure to take the fat out. Here it's a very, very thin needle, I will show you. And no ethical issues, we are not killing an embryo here. So these cells can be injected in different ways depending on where the problem is. They can be directly, if the problem is in the brain, can be injected directly into the brain. However, injecting directly into the brain is risky, and though it may be more efficient but risky. It can be given intravenously into the IV, but then when you are injecting here, most of the cells will get trapped in the lungs. 50% of the cells get trapped in the lungs when we give intravenous, and very few will reach the brain. Okay, it can be given intramuscularly, intraarterially, but that is more for muscular problems. So for the brain, we find that injecting into the spinal fluid, it's simpler. It is just one needle. The cells will reach directly to the brain, okay, without going into the lungs or the liver or the heart, but it will not cause any damage, because we are not going into the brain tissue. So very simple is going into the back into the spinal fluid. Okay, so how is this treatment done? It is done in 3 simple steps. First is removing the bone marrow using a very thin needle. You can see from here in the front. Okay, all of you can feel this bone here. It's very easy to feel. Everybody want to feel? Yourself, you don't have to feel others. Yeah, it's a very thin, so it's the most prominent and thick part of the bone of the hip in the front. So a needle, bone marrow can be aspirated, and then in the laboratory it is separated and injected into the lower back here. And from here the cells go to the brain. So this is how procedures of bone marrow. It's thick blood. It's like factory of the blood, right? Where all the baby cells are there, and then they are separated in the laboratory, checked for their viability and cleanliness, and then injected using a very thin needle in the lower back. So no cut, no stitches, just 10 minutes of removing, 5 minutes of injection, and in between, of course, the cell separation time. Now, of course, people have a lot of issues in the US, so what are the legalities, right? So, in fact, Texas has, very few people know about this. People, it's the general theme that stem cells are banned in the US. That's a very generic term, like, like homemade orange juice and alcohol are all beverages, so all of them are banned or are prohibited or have toxic effects. So that's a very generalized term. So there is a Charlie's law in Texas which talks about adult stem cells. See here, adult stem cells can be used. So from the patient's own body, if it is taken, it is their right to use it. That's what Charlie's law says. It can be used in a hospital which is licensed for that use. It can be used by a physician who is doing this treatment with a review of the IRB or Institutional Review Board under monitoring. So this is possible even in the US, but maybe know-how is not there, and that's why not being done. There's a US court judgment which says that FDA doesn't need to approve or disapprove of any procedures. We generally say it is not FDA approved. That's what everybody asks us. Is it FDA approved? FDA is Food and Drug Administration. Cells taken from our own body are not drug, nor are they food, right? These are procedures. So surgical procedures, there is no need for FDA to approve or disapprove them. This is a US court has said. Worldwide, there are a lot of scientific papers, okay? And that cell therapy works for autism. There are 33 publications, and together it has been seen that there is an 80% success rate, which is found in different publications. The first ever that it was shown that cell therapy, especially from the bone marrow, works for autism. This publication, scientific, came from India and came from us, from Rogan, in 2013. Second from China, third from Italy, fourth from the US, fifth from the US, sixth again we published in 2020, later Panama, Vietnam, Iran and US. So this is the first ever publication, Sharma et al., that is from Rogan, and where we looked at 32 patients and we found that 91% success rate. So we found that 91% of the children that we have treated do show improvement. The second came from China, where they used cord blood cells and they looked at a combination of cord blood cells and they found 88% success rate. The third came from US, Dawson et al., which used again the cord blood, and they found that 90% patients showed improvement at 12 months post-intervention. Again, the fourth, again from the US, where they looked at 25 patients where found 90% showed improvement in behavior. This paper from Mexico, which looked at 24 patients and they found that 95% was the success rate. This is from Vietnam, 30 patients showing improvement in 93% of their patients. Again, from Italy, they used fetal stem cells. This is from abortus fetuses. So in Italy, that is allowed. 45 patients, they found 78% showing improvement. Again, another paper from Mexico, where they looked at all different studies, many studies together, they analyzed it, and they found that cell therapy was safe and it improved the various symptoms in autism. So this again paper from China, again paper means they looked at different publication, analyzed all different clinical trials, and they found that it was safe. This our published result, this is recent in 2020. We looked at 254 patients between the age of 2 to 34, and we found that there is improvement in all these different symptoms. So what improves? Understanding improves, learning improves, hyperactivity reduces, eye contact improves, attention concentration becomes better. Now the child is more amenable to training and therapy. So what the child was not able to do before, or therapists were trying and there was a block somewhere, after this treatment it was possible to train the child better. The way example I give is, the sun is always there. We are not creating the sun. But there are days when there are so much cloud that the sun is not able to come in. So what cell therapy does is helps to remove the cloud, so now the sun shines brighter. So that's what we see, the symptoms improve, scales improve. What we see very typically is that if you look at the age, less than 5 years, 98% of the children do show improvement. So maybe 1 or 2 may not improve, but 98% out in less than 5. Between 5 to 10 years, 95%. 10 to 15 years, 90%. So as the age increases, the possibility of success reduces to some extent. Doesn't become 0, but maybe from a 98 it comes to 90. So we also looked at the brain scans before and after the treatment. I showed you that the PET scan shows that these areas are functioning less. This is a scan before the treatment. The blue areas are working less. This is before the treatment, okay? Now 6 months later, it takes 3 to 6 months to see those changes in the brain as well as in the child. And the blue areas you can see after 6 months, they have become green. So not only you see changes in the child, but you also see a change in the brain for the positive. So the blue becomes green so that the brain functioning is now improved. This is one example. Then you can see these blue areas, they are more green. So these are General Electric machines or Siemens machine which do the scan, and these are objective scans. So these are all our scientific publications. We're also invited to write book chapters in special books on autism and neurodevelopmental disorders, to write chapters on stem cell therapy in autism. Let's look at a few examples of improvements. Then this is example of a child. That is in 2015. Second treatment, third treatment is autism. What you are seeing here is a clinical score, kept on reducing, and in 2018 he is out of autism. This is him. He is now 19 years old. He is now going to college. He did a choir trip with the whole group without his parents. He completed his tutoring classes. So his father is a doctor and mother is a nurse. So they brought him to India when he was 11 years old, and he's 19 now. So he came for the treatment 4 years. He was completely non-verbal. You can see absolutely inattentive. In a year when he came for another treatment, we saw that he was sitting better, he was learning better, he was more interested, much more stable. So this is a year's difference. He could complete tasks, he had more understanding, he could focus better, he was learning better. Here you can see, not at all interested. Here is much more focused. And he was completely non-verbal, or maybe like a few syllables. He started saying a few words in a year. So this is 1 year. What I wanted to show was the impact of this treatment over a period of time. So this was 2017, 2018, and in 2020 November, that was the peak of COVID, and when everywhere there was so much despondency, and we were also completely, bogged down by COVID. This beautiful video comes to me from the mother with this amazing message. I hope I'm able to see. Can you hear? You can't hear him, right? So you'll have to take my word for it because the sound unfortunately is not working. So this child here is the same child who was completely non-verbal, and now you can see he is making a story on the go. He's making a story about a man who falls into strawberries and becomes red and then shoes become red, and so he is doing this extempore and he has recorded it himself. So this is the child who was completely non-verbal. Now this child in 2020 was 7 years old and now is 10 years, and he is at par or better than his peers in certain areas, not all but in many areas. And mother sent this message to me saying that this was the foundation. The foundation happened with the cell therapy and it was very crucial, and now he is telling a 3-minute story completely on his own with no prompting. He has come a long way from being almost non-verbal, saying only a few single words when we first came to India. So many people say, what happens? Will the effect go away? No, the effect remains, and the more you work on it, the more the child will develop. So what are we doing? It's like when you build a house, what do you have to do? You have to make the foundation strong. If you don't make the foundation strong, how will you build a 10, 15, 20 story building, right? It will collapse. So what we believe is that if we focus on the child in the first 5 to 7 years, you can make the foundation strong, and then the impact continues for a longer time. This is another child who came from Kenya. For 13 years, he was practically locked in his home. He was so difficult to manage, he could not even go out. He could not go to school. Parents could not take him anywhere. After the treatment, he became calmer. His understanding improved. Hand-eye coordination improved. At least he could be sent to a special school. At 13 years, we are not looking at the child coming out of the spectrum, but at least becoming more manageable and more trainable is what we are looking at. Concept of understanding, social behavior improves. He's able to do his own activities at home, and he started learning swimming and cycling after 13 years, which he was not trainable before. Unfortunately, this requires a sound, but I'm going to just explain to you. This is a story of triplets. There are 3 brothers from Kenya, and these are all three autism, and they came to us when they were 6-7 years old. Now they are 11 years old, and one of them is out of the spectrum. The other, who was very severe, is now moderate, and the one who is moderate is now mild. So this is the progress. All 3 were born at the same time, but each manifested differently. So of course the brain functioning and how they respond to therapy is different. What we have been able to do is at least get them to a level where they can function independently and slowly become verbal as well. So these were a few examples of autism. A little bit about cerebral palsy. Is there anybody here who's interested in cerebral palsy, or should I go ahead? At the end, I will take all the questions once I finish. Yes. Otherwise, we'll get digressed, right? So, cerebral palsy, in short, is severe brain damage. You can see this is a lot of brain damage here. With the cell therapy, the damage is improved, and you can see again here the brain is much better after the treatment. So, more trainable, and again, this is scientifically we have studied this, and this is a child who was completely on the wheelchair when he came to us, 14 years old, and we saw improvement. At first we worked on his hand function. He was able to sit, wear his clothes. He could. So we work holistically on all function. We find that with the cell therapy, the understanding improves, the eye contact becomes better, the tongue movement, lip movement, chewing in these children becomes better, then the neck holding, sitting, standing, walking. But of course, it requires a lot of therapy training. A child who was completely on a wheelchair is now able to walk. So there are a few of these examples, many of these examples in fact. So complications, of course, want to know, yes, it works, but what are the side effects? So definitely that's most important. So when we looked at what cells to use, that was our first concern. We believed in the principle of first do no harm. First, that is the principle used in surgery. So just use it primum nocere, it's called in Latin. So no major neurological complications when we are using the child's own cells, because they cannot be rejected. But yes, in some we do see a headache for 2 to 3 days after the procedure, a little pain, and in those children who have a history of seizure or epilepsy or convulsions, or whose EEG is abnormal, there is a 3 to 6% chance that seizure may transiently increase. And in such children, we give medication to get the seizure down to less than 2%. And this also we have published, so we believe in scientific validation as well as making it available for everybody, our experience to everybody, and that's through scientific publications, and we have published this as well. The ethical aspect of the work that we do is what our work is monitored by our IRB, and we believe that cell therapy is, as I said, an additional team member to the whole process of rehabilitation and training the brain. It's called plasticity, neuroplasticity, or retraining the brain or regenerating. By itself, it is add to your food probiotic and prebiotic. Keep it gluten, casein free and rich in curcumin and fermented food. So supplements, so these are intravenous supplements, not generally for children more of oral supplements. So what is the scientific basis of the work that we do? All the work that we do is published scientifically in more than 100 scientific journals, 106, 107 now scientific articles. We have written book chapters in different international textbooks, 18 books, and treated over 13,000 patients from 75 different countries. Now, India and United States are two biggest democracy in the world, and what is the political support for this new field of science and research and treatment? Let's see that. Our own Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, is a big supporter of the field of cell therapy. He spoke in the parliament about going, and he visited the Nobel laureate Professor Yamanaka in Japan to understand how stem cells can be used for the treatment of sickle cell anemia, and he talked about this in the parliament. This is what he's talking in the parliament. It's a big supporter. Also, he has written a book chapter, a preface for the book that we have written on muscular dystrophy in local language, that is Gujarati. And this is Professor Alok Sharma, our director, neurosurgeon, who is presenting the book that we have written to him in one of these occasions. So this is about India. President Obama, when he came into power, did a very hallmark or milestone, that is, he lifted the ban on embryonic stem cell research, the ban which was enforced by President Bush in the year 2001. So he actually lifted, many people know about the ban, but they don't know that it was lifted in 2008 by President. And he says that scientists believe that these tiny cells may have the potential to help us understand and treat some of the most devastating diseases and conditions, to regenerate a severed spinal cord and to spur insulin production, to spare a child from lifetime of needles, to treat Parkinson, cancer, heart disease, and others that affect millions of Americans and people who love them. There is no finish line in the work of science. The race is always with us. The urge and of giving substance and answering those many bedside prayers, of seeking a day when words like terminal and incurable are potentially retired from the vocabulary. And we will bring the change that so many scientists have, I think it's repeating itself. So I would like to finish this with this very positive decree by President Obama. So in conclusion, in today's talk, newer imaging technology help us understand autism and cerebral palsy better. Multidisciplinary rehabilitation and medical treatment improve quality of life, and cell therapy and integrative therapy are safe and effective and work complementary with the neurorehabilitation. So this is what I presented in my talk today, as I said, and thank you for patient hearing. Happy to answer questions.
First question is like, once we do the therapy, stem cell thing, so once we do the first treatment, if there is no improvement, so there's like multiple, like you have to do more follow-ups and stuff.
So, first time when the treatment is done, second treatment is suggested only when there is an improvement in the first treatment. It's like a booster effect, like you give a vaccine and after 6 months you do another vaccine. So the repeat stem cell procedures are only to improve the effect of the first treatment, like a booster effect. So out of 100, if 90 are improving, 10 do not, then less likely that we would repeat if it doesn't work the first time.
Thank you, Doctor. So you did briefly allude to some of the short-term minor adverse effects, but I wanted to ask you if, in your experience, have you observed any adverse long-term outcomes from the procedure?
No long-term side effects, like no tumorogenicity for 100%, because we've been treating for 15 years now. So we are following all the patients for the last 15 years. So no long-term tumors, definitely no long-term issues in terms, because you have to understand what we are using are adult cells. Adult cells have specific lifespan. They will multiply and they integrate into the brain. So they will not have any long-term issues. They will become adult cells and become part of the body. So no long-term, no. But yes, as I have said, we have seen seizures in the first 6 months. If there is a history of seizures, there is a small chance. Otherwise, no long-term, no.
Yep. Hello. You did note that you're treating about 13,000 people. I wanted to know what the success rate is.
So 13,000, when I refer to 13,000, these are neurological conditions. Because we are neurosurgeon pain and spine, so only focus on neurological condition. Out of that, 4,000 would be autism. And the publications which I presented, the first 2 publications show, depending on the age, in less than 5 years, the success rate would be about 95% plus. Between 5 to 10 years, it would be around 90 to 95, and with age, it will reduce a little bit. So in every condition, it is different. For example, in motor neuron disease, which Stephen Hawking suffered from, the success rate is only 50%. But in case of autism, it would be 90%. For in case of cerebral palsy, also 90%. So children do much better than adults. We treat spinal cord injuries as well, and we also head injuries and dementia. In older patients, the results are less.
Hi, doctor. So I have a question. So you said this has been going on, the surgeries have been going for 15 years only, right?
Yeah.
So is there any fear that there could be a reversal, like along the line? And then a second question is, has the surgeries ever been done in the U.S. before? And do you have any programs in the U.S.?
At present, our program is only in India, but we have got ethical clearance to do the program in Bahamas, not in the US, but in Bahamas. So we would be starting shortly, maybe in the next year or so in Bahamas. Our experience so far says that in static conditions like autism and cerebral palsy, there is no reversal. But in conditions which are degenerative conditions, like muscular dystrophy or even motor neuron disease, it is possible that whatever improvements you get may get reversed because of the natural history of the condition. So in conditions which go down, the effect would be temporary, but in conditions which are static or do not really worsen a lot, in them the improvements will remain. So as I said, I showed you 7-year follow-up of boy, he kept on improving only. So no reversal seen unless there is a major event in that child's or individual's life. So if there is, we do see sometimes that there is a huge turmoil, like if there is a separation in the family, the mother-father separate, and there is a lot of emotional pressure on the child, or there is a very, very severe ailment, like very severe fever or encephalitis, then that could reverse. But otherwise, in natural course, it doesn't reverse. No. Whatever improvements the child gets will remain.
I know in your talk you kept saying that whilst the child grows, the chances decreases. So does that mean if somebody's above 19, there is no hope at all, or there is something that you will try?
No, it decreases. It doesn't become zero. So it relatively. So if you have a child who's less than 5 years, the possibility that he will, in fact, become much better from severe to mild is higher. The possibility. We have treated 25-year-old. We have treated 30-year-old also. Now the prognosis in those would be dependent on what is the level in that child. So we have treated older children who are not very severe, who have certain issues, they are well rehabilitated. In them, improvement is much better. But we have to have realistic expectations in them. Plus, the parents have tried so much. They are also older. The child also is older. A lot of hormonal influences have now come into play, especially after 12, 13, 15, because there is so much hormonal surge. The brain is also now, less plastic or more rigid. So that's where the possibility becomes lesser. It doesn't become zero. But in very severe autism at 19, 20, I personally usually don't recommend very, very high, very severe condition. But mild to moderate, yes, we can work with them.
I have a question about learning in those kids. So we sometimes look at the social, the communication, and the behavior aspect of the autistic child. So I wanted to find out if after the surgery, these areas develop, or your surgery concentrates on a particular aspect of these three areas.
So what we find is that the most first thing that improves is the comprehension or understanding. When understanding improves, learning improves, then we can change the behavior. So if you look at behaviors, if you look at a child with autism and a neurotypical child, even a neurotypical child will have a lot of behaviors, but the way that we are able to help that child change the behavior is by telling them what is right and what is wrong. In a child with autism, improved comprehension helps us to get to that level that behaviors can be modified. The children who throw tantrums and meltdowns, they become lesser. And as understanding improves and the repertoire of interest improves, socialization and communication also improves. So generally we see all facets improve, but they may not all improve at the same time. Okay, so it depends on where are you taking that child from. We are putting seed in the soil. You need to also fertilize it, give it the right direction. So training, therapy, and a part which I did not talk about, one very important factor is family support. So which I said that the whole village is required to raise a child. Like that, every family member's support is very important. I believe that a child, especially a boy with autism, when he's less than 7 years, a big chunk, the focus is the mother can do a lot of things. But after 7 or 8 years, it's the father's role, which is very important. So there the family members, family support, how they take it ahead, how they give stimulation, socialization. Don't keep the child inside and, think that it is a stigma. Own your child. The child he's your child. If you do not own him with pride, nobody else is going to give that support to you, or others are not going to give you that support. So there are so many individuals if you look at the history of mankind, who have been diagnosed as autism at some point in their life and have gone on to achieve great things. So we want our children to also be able to get their potential out. Most of the children with autism, unless they are very severe, have some very special qualities. Some are great in mathematics, some are beautiful in music, some are very good in drawing, some are very good visual photographic memory. So we need to find that and enhance, and not expect your child to become like some other child. Let him become the best person that he can become. That's what we believe in. We don't want to cure or change the character of the child. We want to empower the child to be able to become, get his potential out. But yes, that is possible when you bring the child to mild to moderate. But in a severe child, that won't be possible. The focus in severe child would be more about activities of daily living, to be able to take care of himself. So the goals would change in every child based on where is he at a particular point.
Thank you again, Doctor, for explaining and being able to come all the way from India to come and explain this year. I mean, there's been a lot of questions about autism in the United States, and so many people here, like people in medicine. I've seen several doctors who have always been questioning, where do you get this information? How is it true and all that? So I've had so many questions, and there are some few questions which I have them here, and I've called one of my fellow friends who's an internal medicine doctor, and I have to ask these questions to say, what is appropriate age to start a treatment? Question number one. Question number two, what's the process of selecting a patient for treatment? And question number three is, how long is the treatment? And if you don't mind, if I add another question, is what's the recovery percent to all the children on the spectrum recovery? And what are the failure results? Thank you.
So I think out of the 5, 2 or 3 I've already answered, but I'll recap a bit. So the best age is earlier the better, as in any medical condition. So definitely we see less than 5 years. The earliest child we have treated, he was not even diagnosed as autism. He was on red flagging for autism, like 15 to 18 months. So earlier we treat better. The best results are less than 5 years of age, as I said. Failure rate would vary from 10% to 20%, depending on the age. What else did you ask? What is the treatment duration? Treatment duration. Treatment so our focus, as I said, is holistic. It's not only on the cell therapy. So but the treatment that we do would be a 1 week or a 2 week treatment that would happen in India, followed by a follow-up of 3 to 6 months virtually. We will be in touch with the patient, and depending on the severity of the child, he may need to come for another treatment between 6 months to a year. So depending on the level of affectation, the treatment duration will vary. Some children may need 2, some may need 3. What else was it?
What all the child on the spectrum recovery?
As I said, so depends on these age and severity. As I said, around on an average 85 to 90% if you take all age groups. So 95% of less than 5 years, 90% for about 5 to 10 years, and 85 to 90% for 10 to 15 years. So by and large, that would be the success rate. The failure, yes, by failure we mean no change. So there will be no harm, no negative effects. The child will not improve. But a lot of, apart from the cell therapy, the training, therapies, rehabilitation are also very important. Those who do not undergo any therapy may see there are children who show improvement, but we believe that they can do better if you do proper training and therapy as well. And we give that roadmap. So we believe in giving a roadmap. Our therapist will do the training for the parents, give them a home program, tell them what they need to do in the next 6 months, because not everywhere therapy is available. In the US, still the therapies are good, but people come to us from all over the world. We get so many patients from very small remote areas from India, as well as from Africa where there is nothing. So we train the parents to do the therapy. That's the best they can do. You have to do the best of whatever is possible. So we give them roadmap, we tell them what you need to do at home, educate the child as much as possible with whatever resources you have.
One more question. Sure. I think I can speak loudly enough.
Okay.
What's the cost associated with the treatment?
So, as I said, this is an awareness program, and I don't think it is appropriate at this point for me to speak about the cost, but you can get in touch with my colleague, Dr. Pooja, and one-on-one. We need to evaluate whether the child is, I said, you said, how do you evaluate whether the child is can be treated or not, right? So we need a clinical evaluation. We need to understand what is the age of the child, what is the condition of the child, whether the child has any other comorbidities. So if the child has any blood disorders or any brain tumor, would be an exclusion. We do not treat any child with cancers or tumors along with autism. There are certain conditions of the brain which lead to autism-like features like tuberous sclerosis. That is more for technical people. So we have to look at what if there is any other cause which could increase. So in certain conditions, the tubers may get stimulated. So we do not treat anybody with viral infections like HIV, HCV, hepatitis B, because we are taking the child's own.
Happens to be one. Could it be that the PET scan will be, you would have the PET scan and see nothing wrong with the brain, but the child is exhibiting those quality of autism?
See, from our experience, we have treated as a 4,000. With the clinical diagnosis, very unlikely that the PET scan is absolutely okay. We have not seen so far the brain being absolutely normal. It may be less or it may be more. That's the difference, but brain is affected. So the baseline may differ, but yeah, with the clinical diagnosis. In fact, as I said, we have used PET scan to figure out if there is a problem. Also clinically, like the child is very young, 18 months old, has query suspicion. PET scan then becomes a baseline for us to know if there is a problem, whether we should do the intervention.
All right, at this time we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll be done. There's a gentleman here going for one of the questions, so 1 more. Thank you.
Dr. Pooja doesn't have a presentation. She's Oh, okay. Because you continue.
So I have a question about PET scan. So I was reading about it. So do you insert dyes in the PET scan, and are those any side effects to them?
It's a radioactive dye, which is a glucose-containing dye. Glucose is the only sugar that the brain can use for its functioning. So it's very small amount. It's called microcurie.
Okay.
So it's like 2.5 microcurie. So it's minuscule. It has a half-life of 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
So it gets removed from our body in a few hours.
Okay.
So it doesn't have any long-term impact.
And I was 99% convinced. I had a 1%, so which is clear now. I'm coming in October. Just want to see the breakdown. So it's a week. I signed up for a week. So how is the breakdown like?
So the week treatment starts on a Sunday. Sunday a patient comes to us, maybe in the morning. Then the whole day is clinical assessment, blood workup, to see that everything is okay, hemoglobin is good, there is no infection and all. And then we stimulate the bone marrow with an injection known as granulocyte colony stimulating factor. That's one injection. That's a Sunday. Monday morning would be the brain scans and rest of the clinical assessment and review of the case with the brain scan. We explain all the reports to the parents and tell them, what is that we have seen and what is the severity, what to expect. and then the second injection. The 2 injections to stimulate the bone marrow. Monday night or Tuesday is the procedure. The procedure is in 2 parts. The first part is the bone marrow aspiration, which is 5 to 10 minutes. Then the child is with the parents. 4 to 5 hours where the cell separation will happen, and the child is back once the cells are ready for a 5-minute injection in the lower back. And then after that is the fluids. So that's the day of rest. Then from Wednesday onwards is the training and rehabilitation. Wednesday to Saturday would be all the different therapies, monitoring for any immediate side effects like a pain in the back or a headache. That is part of the brain. So yes, because of amount of oxygen deprivation before, during, after birth, just like you have children who cannot sit and stand and walk. In children, in autism, there is no physical issue, but it's just that the understanding and learning is a bit delayed in terms of social development is delayed. So definitely no witchcraft here. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder, as I said before, and definitely, and that's why it is something which requires a medical treatment. So no, I don't know, in India we call it jhadu food, like we, all those things will not work. We need to train the brain, that's all. So yeah, no witchcraft.
We need to train the brain.
Any more questions?
We need to train the brain.
So genetics does play a part in certain percentage of autism. It is found about 10%. A percentage of autism could be inherited disorder or could have a genetic origin. So it is sometimes seen to run in family, especially when there is consanguineous marriages within the family. The possibility of autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions is higher. It has been seen that sometimes there are 2 or 3 children in the family who have autism as well. We have seen many of this, but I would say overall it would be 10%. 10% is genetically inherited. But 90% is environmental. Yeah, 90%. So my suggestion to all new mothers or new couples is, number 1, mothers need to take care of their health. Their hemoglobin has to be good, folic acid has to be good, vitamin D is also seen to be an important factor in brain development along with B12 and B6. So health of the mother is very important. Emotional, social, physical, all of that. Depression in the mother, high diabetes, gestational diabetes, hypothyroidism, medications during pregnancy all seem to affect the brain development. And now the new thing that we believe also affects is the phone. Too much of use of phone may also affect, so we talk about radioactivity, electromagnetic radiation from the phone is also is very harmful. So when the mother is pregnant, try and use phones lesser. And when the child is born, now pediatricians, I don't know whether they tell here or not, till 5 years of age, don't give phone to your child. So till 5 years, avoid screen time, because it affects the social interaction. Child learns everything only from the phone and not from you. So definitely, even after the treatment, definitely we say, don't get your child off the phone. That's a digital medium should be used in the right way, not as a substitute for parents. That's what unfortunately young parents are doing these days. So try and avoid giving too much screen time to your child, more social interaction. Autism is a problem of lack of social interaction because social interaction has not been given to the child when the child is developing in the first few years. COVID has done that to us, but before that we were doing that to the child as well. So avoid that.
All right, we're going to be very mindful of our time here now, and I'm going to take one more question. I'll give you a number. You can reach out to that number, and whatever questions or things you have, inquiries you have, you can direct it to Joyce, and she will facilitate same. So do I have one more question from anybody? All right.
Yeah, somebody asked this already, but because I just got here, but I just want to clarify this. I've heard some rumors on the internet that, you know, if you go to the hospital and they give your kid a shot, you know, like you have a 6-month-old boy or girl, you take them to the hospital, they have to give them a shot for, you know, their immunization. That's what I'm trying to think. Okay. So, does that affect the child? Some children?
You are asking whether vaccination affects or causes autism. A very controversial subject. So this came from a study done by one group. I think it was in 1998. That MMR causes autism. But then there were many studies after that, scientific studies, which refuted or showed that this is false. So since then, parents, there is a group who do not want to vaccinate their children. There is no 100% to say consensus on that. As a doctor from a developing country, personally, and from where yes, autism is a big problem, but so is tuberculosis and measles and polio and diphtheria and tetanus is also a big problem, and it is a life taker. So as a medical doctor, I do not support that thought, but yes, I believe that it has to be spaced out. I believe that immunization or vaccination needs to be spaced out, but you cannot completely get rid of that, because you will then have this other issues of infectious diseases increasing so much, and that takes life. So whether that is true or not, it's still not clear. But personally, I don't believe it. That is my opinion. Others may not agree with it, but that is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nandini. Let's give a big round of applause.
Will get answered. Just keep patience, we'll get in touch with you, and Dr. Pooja and Joyce will guide you further on that.
So when it comes to autism, with the parents, there's a lot of mental health issues that go on, because the thinking never stops. You know, you're wondering why my child and all that. And the stigma that goes with that, especially in our part of the country, is like, okay, why me? So to talk about mental health and a little bit of wellness, we're going to invite Dr. Pooja to say a few words to reassure us that we are not alone in this and that we can get through. Doc?
Hello everyone, and very good evening once again. How are you guys doing? Thank you. So I'm Dr. Pooja, and I'm based in Chicago. So here I want to talk about mental well-being, mental wellness, okay, and what's the holistic, health, or you can say like what you mean by health and wellness. So these days, like, this is very upcoming topic, and a lot of programs are running. Okay, a lot of programs are coming for medical professionals on health and wellness coach, health and mental well-being coach. And I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach now. I've done it from US itself. So when I see parents, they do everything possible, to get their child everything, whatever. Like sometimes they just go out and beyond to provide, to their child. But in doing so, they just forget about taking care of themselves. So they are just so drained and enriched by providing everything physically, mentally, They just don't care about themselves. Other day I was talking to one of the parent. While talking to the parent, dad was like, I can see, I can feel, how sad, he is because his child is not diagnosed with autism or he's under spectrum, but he is hyperactive. But the agony and the pain he was going through, I just cannot explain here in words. So yeah, this is what triggered me, to do this program and to help, parents and families whose, child or any other family member is suffering from this. So I don't have any presentation like Dr. Nandini because it just, short notice for me, like by Ms. Joyce and Mr. Kawali to present. So I just want to tell you, what do you mean by health and wellness coach, and what's the difference between coach and a counselor? Okay, so basically, what do you mean by wellness? Can anyone tell me about wellness? Whatever comes to your mind, can you just tell me about that? Pardon? Okay, peace of mind, that is really good. Any other thought coming to anyone's mind? So yeah, all at the end, I just want to say, stay positive. Everything will fall in place one after another, one step at a time, and you will be there, I promise. Yeah, I'm coaching a lot of, different age group clients. Some are parents, some are, youngsters, some are teenagers, but yeah, they are showing improvement. Just have faith in yourself, yeah, and you will achieve that. Thank you. With a note on positivity, I'll not take much of your time. Thank you for being here today and listening to us, to Dr. Nandini and to me, and have a very good night. Take care and stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. Remember, if you cannot take care of yourself, you cannot take care of the children. So you got to take care of yourself first. Please keep this phone number on a speed dial. 860-324. The last four actually we can use for play for in Connecticut. 0016. 860-324-0016. The name is Joyce. Joyce. When you call, reference her Neurogen, she'll fill all your questions or inquiries and direct them on to Dr. Puja, and then they will forward it to India, and then they will be in touch immediately. Yeah, India uses fiber optics, so they will forward it immediately. But once again, thank you. This recording is on YouTube by courtesy of CM Radio, so you can easily access it. CM Radio on YouTube, you can access it and go back, watch, reference. More questions, 860-324-0016. Thank you. Please give yourselves a wonderful round of applause. And